requested to turn off all cell phones or pagers or place them in a silent mode. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a minute, please. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I just received a telegram letting me know that Colonel Roosevelt's train was a little delayed leaving Yazoo City. It's going to be getting here just a few minutes late. He'll be arriving here in Meridian around 20:03. That's 8:03 for some of you civilians out there. And then he's going to be able to be here with you. Now, usually the trains run pretty much on time, but we've been having a problem with departure times, people wanting to speak to the colonel, especially since it's been 8 years since his last visit here to the Magnolia State. So, thank you. Oh, excuse me, I should introduce myself to you. My name is James Bunting. I served as an aide to Colonel Roosevelt down in Cuba. Now, maybe some of you are a little young to remember the Spanish-American War. Of course, looking out there, I see quite a number of you that might actually have served in that conflict. I know, sir, you're looking around to see if anybody older was sitting behind you. Yeah, if you weren't down there, let me tell you, it was a mighty fine fight. Mighty fine fight. Now, the colonel doesn't like to talk about that battle, especially when he's out on the campaign trail. He doesn't feel that talking about his part when he was serving in the war, he didn't think that's proper to talk about it on the campaign. He just thinks he was doing his duty, and that ought to be enough for him. However, since we have a few minutes to kill, I'd like to brag on him a little bit. See, we were a volunteer regiment. We came from all over the country, men that had gone bear hunting with the colonel. Myself, I was a guide for him in 1896, and when I heard he had left his position as the Undersecretary of the Navy and was going to join up with Dr. Leonard Woods to form the 1st Cavalry Regiment, I said to myself, now that's the company I want to fight with. If there's any man that's going to throw the Spaniards right out of Cuba, Theodore Roosevelt's the man to do it. So there we were, all gathered in San Antonio, men from all over the country. You never heard so many accents in one place at one time in your life. Yankees and rebels. We weren't that anymore. We were Americans again. Now the colonel, he's a funny guy. He wasn't exactly your typical spit and polish military man. Now, he looked good in his Brooks Brothers military uniform, but he would always get in trouble for fraternizing with his men. I mean, he was known to buy a round of beer for us every now and again at one of the local drinking establishments. Don't get me wrong, the colonel is not a drinking man. I mean, he said he tried it one time at Harvard, but ended up giving a speech from on top of the table. Maybe he ended up under the bottom of the table, I'm not sure. But he swore it off. But he thought there was no reason that his men couldn't bend an elbow every now and then. Now the press, they called us Colonel Roosevelt's Rough Riders. Now the colonel wasn't a bird colonel then, he was just a lieutenant colonel. He tried to get the press to stop calling him full colonel. But you know how the press can be once they get hold to a fact, even if it's wrong, they just keep printing it over and over and over again. So there we were. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the tedium of sitting around Tampa waiting for the Navy to pick us up. And I'm also not going to nauseate you with the details of that sea voyage to Cuba. Men and horses getting seasick. I'm not going to tell you about that. I will tell you this. To this day, I cannot look at a bowl of oatmeal. I'm also not going to tell you what happened when we landed. It was horrible. We lost most of our mounts to the sea. We ended up being a cavalry with no horses. It's probably a good thing, because I don't know how those animals would have made it through that jungle. I mean, we had a few heated skirmishes when we got to that rainforest, but it wasn't until we got to the hills of the San Juan area that we knew we were in a war. I mean, Americans were dropping all over the place. At no point had we been able to break through the Spanish fortifications. Well, let me paint the picture for you. The Spanish had cleared the jungle for 200 yards, all the way up to the base of these seemingly hills, in the San Juan Hills, they shot up at about a 45-degree angle. About 45-degree angle? Yeah, just about like that. Not only were we sitting ducks, we had to be parting mountain goat to get up there. Now, the word came down that the colonel had orders to take this hill that was on our right. The colonel gave us orders to advance, but we couldn't go anywhere. There was a company of Army regulars in our way, and they weren't budging. The colonel went over to their captain and said, "Why haven't you made your advance?" Now, personally, I knew why he hadn't made his advance. Only an idiot would have gone up that hill with all those Spanish rifles aiming down at him. The captain said he didn't have to listen to the colonel because he wasn't nothing but a volunteer colonel anyway. He had no authority over a regular army. The colonel got incensed. He became animated. He told that captain to either take that hill or stand aside. That captain stood aside. Way out of the way. The colonel started barking out orders, and we got ready. We started whooping and yelling and getting our courage up. We left the safety of the woods, and we made our attack. We made our charge. Within seconds, opposing gunfire rang out, and we ducked back to the safety of the woods. The only man still charging the enemy was the colonel. Within seconds, he had come back to us. He'd been injured. He was bleeding from a wound in his arm, either from bullets or shrapnel. He was irate at us. He was angry. He had what my grandmama used to call a hissy fit. It's the only time I ever heard the colonel use profanity. He said he couldn't believe after all the training that we had come that far, that we were not going to fight. He couldn't believe that we were cowards, that we had come there to Cuba to free the Cubans from the yoke of tyranny, and he wanted us to fight, damn it, fight. Well, we were so ashamed we had no choice but to fight, so when he led the charge again, we were right there with him. We went up that hill, and folks, I never want to go through anything like that in my life again. My friends, men, boys, dying, bleeding all around us. Now, I don't know if it was the inspiration of the colonel, our good training, or just stupid good luck. But we made it to the top of that hill, and we got there. About that time, we heard gunfire, machine gun fire ringing out from the next ridge over, a little hill called San Juan. And the colonel knew that Americans were dying over there too, so he told us to charge those battlements as well. Well, we did. And the Spanish were so surprised to see us coming, they didn't know what to do. They found themselves outflanked and outmaneuvered, and we were triumphant. In fact, there was General Joe Wheeler was serving with us. He was a former Confederate general. He saw those Spanish making their retreat off that ridge. He got so excited, he started dancing around, and he said, "Woo, boys, look at them damn Yankees run." After the battle, the colonel came over to what was left of us, because not all of us made it up that hill. We lost over 65% of our men making that charge. The colonel came over to what was left of us, and he apologized. He said, "Men, there were no cowards up here today." He was right. There were no cowards up there on that hill. It's brave men, brave Americans. People ask me how come I'd vote for Colonel Roosevelt. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd not only vote for him again, I'd fight for him again. Well, it's got a signal that the colonel has arrived outside the building, so I'm going to leave you good folks. But before I do, a couple of tips when you're addressing the colonel. Just remember one thing. You never refer to him as Mr. President. Yeah, he's very strict about that. There's only one sitting president at a time, and he hasn't been reelected yet. That's what we're here about tonight. And oh yeah, if you value your life, never ever refer to him as Teddy. He deplores the diminutive, with one notable exception. If friends and political allies are chanting for him in support, going Teddy, Teddy, well, he likes that all right. So, I see he's here, so it's my pleasure to introduce my former commander, Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. Let's bring him up with a big rousing Teddy, 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 Teddy.